It was scary, but I knew I had to do it. I made sure no one saw me and went inside. I crept along the hallways, trying to avoid cameras. I was following a base employee. Soon he stopped in front of a metal door, punched in the code on the lock, and went in. I caught a glimpse of my sister behind the door. My heart immediately started pounding. The employee was gone for about 10 minutes. After he came out and disappeared around the corner, I punched in the same code and walked into the room. Peggy was still there. I was so glad to see her. I ran up to my sister, hugged her tightly, and almost burst into tears. Come on, we have to get out of here. Just as soon as we were about to leave, we heard footsteps behind the door, and someone walked in. Hi, I'm Ellie. When my younger sister was born, my parents devoted all their time to her. At first, that didn't bother me, but then everything changed. Peggy was very smart from a very young age. She quickly learned to speak, read, and count. At the age of 4, she was already far ahead of her peers in terms of development. One day, I was sitting in my room trying to do math homework. I'd never been good at exact sciences, so I was filming and planning on searching for a solution online. Peggy came in and sat next to me. I wasn't paying her any attention until she suddenly handed me a piece of paper. The solution to the problem was written on it. I looked at my sister in surprise. Had she copied it from somewhere? But Peggy said that she had solved it herself. I gave her a couple more tasks, and she quickly came up with solutions. I found a website with the answers, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Peggy had done everything right, but that was simply impossible. That's when I made a huge mistake. I told my parents about it. Of course, they were delighted and oohed and awed over Peggy the whole evening. I had problems at school. A month before that, we got a new math teacher. She disliked me at first sight. She constantly picked on me and humiliated me in front of the whole class. I got sick of it and asked my parents to talk to her. They agreed, but then immediately started discussing Peggy and forgot about my request. One day, the math teacher gave us tasks that didn't even have solutions on the internet. Even straight-A students didn't know how to solve them. I knew that if I couldn't do it, I would be finished. The teacher wouldn't scold the other students, but she would mock me for sure. When I got home, I asked Peggy for help. To be honest, I didn't hold my breath or anything. The tasks were very difficult. Peggy sat down and opened the books our parents had given her. In the evening, she gave me a solution. I was absolutely shocked. I wasn't sure that she had done everything right, but it was better than nothing. As we were talking, our parents came up to us. Peggy, you're so smart. Ellie, you need to be more like your sister. You're a high school student, but you can't do anything yourself. My mom's words really hurt me. I'm actually doing well at school. It's just that the math teacher is picking on me. My parents didn't want to listen to me, and we had a fight. The next day, the math teacher asked me to write the solution on the blackboard. Turned out to be correct after all. You should have seen her face. She got angry and gave me some tasks that were even more difficult. I wanted to ask Peggy for help again, but I was in for a surprise at home. My sister and parents were sitting in the living room with several TV guys. It turned out that my parents had contacted some show, and Peggy was given a chance to take part in it. It was very late by the time everyone had left. I asked my sister for help anyway, but my parents intervened. Ellie, have some decency. Peggy's tired. Deal with your problems yourself. That hurt me. My parents had always loved their younger daughter more, but lately they had become obsessed with her. I came to school without a solution. The math teacher gloated and scolded me in front of the whole class. I got along with my classmates fine, but they still laughed at me. It was all terribly unpleasant. Why did the teacher hate me so much? Why wouldn't she leave me alone? A few days later, Peggy was on TV. Everyone at school asked me about her. My classmates guessed that she had been the one to solve that difficult task for me. The lamest thing was that the math teacher did as well. I got an awful mark and was made to clean up the classroom as punishment for cheating. She infuriated me. I decided to go to the principal. However, when I started talking about the math teacher, he suddenly interrupted me. I saw the show with your sister. She's a genius. I'd like to talk to your parents, although Peggy is still a little girl. I will gladly accept her into my school, even let her skip a grade. I almost burst out crying then and there. No one cared about my problems at school either. Everyone was always talking about my sister. It annoyed me so terribly that Peggy was much smarter than me. I wished I had been born a genius too. My sister's popularity was growing rapidly. After the first show, she was invited to more of them. Our parents got good money for her participation. New things appeared in our house, and Mom and Dad even fixed it up a bit. It all put me in a foul mood. One day, I was playing on the computer when Peggy came up to me. She said that she had been writing some programs and linked up our phones. Now, you'll always know where I am. We're sisters, and we should stick together. It's great, isn't it? I wasn't interested in it at all, and rolled my eyes. Peggy was trying to be nice, but she just pissed me off. One day, the principal invited Peggy to speak at my school during a math lesson. Our usual teacher was sick and another one was subbing for her. Peggy easily solved complex equations on the blackboard. Everyone was gaping at her. Things were going fine until one of my classmates made a joke. Seems like the younger sister got all the brains. I was grinding my teeth with anger. It was the last class and I wanted to cheer myself up after it. I invited my friends to a cafe, but you know what? They refused so that they could spend more time with Peggy. That was the last straw. I threw a fit and went to the cafe alone. I sat there for a while and then decided to wander around the city. I was in a terrible mood. Then I noticed a guy surrounded by people. I got curious and came closer. He was talking about a new boxing club and inviting everyone to the first free lesson. The guy noticed me and smiled. Do you want to give it a try? Boxing is a great sport. It helps to let off steam. Let off steam? That was exactly what I needed. That evening, I went to the intro class. The guy's name turned out to be Jacob, and he became my trainer. I liked boxing and really did feel better after training. I started going to the club almost every day. It helped me get rid of all the negative emotions. Jacob and I talked a lot, and I really liked him. After the math teacher got better and came back to school, I had to go back to cleaning the classroom. One day, I saw a business card she had dropped. It had the logo and contacts of a science center on it. I turned it over in my hands and threw it into the trash. Soon it was Parents' Day at school. The students were asked to create a family tree with photos of their ancestors. I didn't want to waste time on such nonsense, and decided to get it over with quickly. After getting home, I drew a small sketch, and then I opened the family photo albums. Surprisingly enough, I lost track of time. At one point, I came across a photo that made me doubt my eyes. In the photo, Dad was standing next to my math teacher. Did they know each other? When Dad came home from work, I tried to ask him, but he waved me off. Ellie, later, I have absolutely no time. That made me so angry. Of course he didn't have time, because he needed to promote Peggy. Then Mom broke in and we had a fight as usual. It was so unfair, I wanted to scream. I wish Peggy hadn't been born at all. As soon as I shouted it, I saw my sister walk into the room. She heard my words, burst into tears, and ran away. I bit my lip, feeling guilty. I realized that I had gone too far, but was too prideful to admit it. After locking myself in my room, I fell on the bed and burst into tears as well. Soon, everyone in town knew who Peggy was. They called her Little Genius and Megamind. Different companies constantly called our parents and asked about her. I felt out of place at home, and I was terribly lonely. Jacob was the only one who understood and stood by me. I don't know what I would have done without him. Even though I was in low spirits, I decided to find out why my dad and math teacher were in that photo together. There was a date and an address written on the back of it. I googled it and found out it was an address of an old photo studio. I didn't get my hopes up, but asked the employees if they knew anything anyway. I showed them the picture, but no one recognized my dad or the math teacher. I got upset and was about to leave when an elderly cleaning lady suddenly came up to me. I've been working here for a long time, and I have a good memory for faces. I remember this couple very well. They were so in love and happy. Wait, in love? Had my dad had an affair with my math teacher? What a turn! The next day, I barely sat until the end of the math class, and everyone had left the classroom. I came up to the math teacher and told her bluntly that I knew about her and my dad. Just imagine. She didn't even deny anything. Yes, your father and I used to love each other, but then he met your mother and she stole him. You look just like her, a living reminder of what happened to me. Is that why you hate me so much? She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. That was so unfair. Even at school, I suffered because of my parents, and they didn't even care. In the evening, I told Jacob everything during practice. Aside from the whole thing with the math teacher, I was worried about Peggy. She was still sulking, and I felt ashamed of myself for what I had said. I think you and Peggy need to go out without your parents. A cool children's cafe opened nearby recently. You could take her there. It seemed like a good idea, and I decided to go for it. When I came home, my parents were talking to the cameraman. I found Peggy and suggested we go for a walk. She was still angry with me, but agreed. We came to the cafe Jacob had been talking about. The weather was great, and I decided we should sit at a table outside. I saw Peggy on a chair and went to order food. While paying for the cakes, I suddenly noticed that Peggy was gone. I panicked, started looking around and saw her being put in a car and taken away. What the hell? I ran after them, but of course I didn't catch up. I was freaking out. What was I supposed to do now? Go to the police? Call my parents? No, they would definitely kill me. I suddenly remembered about the program Peggy had installed on our phones. I could track her location. Peggy was being taken somewhere out of town. I got a taxi and headed there. There was some sort of closed database at the address the program was showing me. There was no easy way to get inside, but I got lucky. An employee came up to the door, punched in the code, and I slipped in behind him, unnoticed. In the hallway, I suddenly noticed a sign with the name of the organization. It was some kind of science center. The logo seemed very familiar to me. Where could I have seen it? But of course, the same logo had been on the business card I'd found in the math classroom. My teacher was somehow connected to Peggy's kidnappers. Maybe she wanted to take revenge on our family. I crept along the hallways following the employee. There were cameras everywhere, but I tried to avoid them. Soon he stopped at a metal door, punched in a code, and went in. I caught a glimpse of my sister behind the door. My heart immediately started pounding. The employee was gone for about 10 minutes. After he came out and disappeared around the corner, I punched in the same code and walked into the room. Peggy was still there. I was so glad to see her. I ran up to my sister, hugged her tightly, and almost burst into tears. There was a table covered with papers in the corner of the room. I looked through them and realized that the things that were going on in the center weren't quite legal. They studied different phenomena. They had probably decided to study Peggy, who was unusually smart for her age. How dare they? I took my sister's hand. Let's go. We have to get out of here. Just as we were about to leave, we heard footsteps behind the door, and someone walked in. I turned around and saw my math teacher. She was wearing a white lab coat just like that employee, so she really was involved. While I was trying to figure out how to outsmart her, she had come closer. Ellie, don't be afraid. I want to help you. Come on, I'll get you out of here. Yeah, sure. I pretended to trust her, and Peggy and I followed her into the hallway. As soon as she turned away, I started dragging my sister in the opposite direction. My heart was pounding like crazy, and my clothes were sticking to my wet back. I promised myself I would never hurt my sister again if we got out. We had almost reached the exit when our path was suddenly blocked. No, it couldn't be happening. Standing in front of us was Jacob. He looked at me and grinned nastily, still trying to run away. I don't understand. What are you doing here? This is my main job. Our center has tried to convince your parents to let us study Peggy many times. Her abilities are phenomenal, but they refused. I invited you to the boxing club to earn your trust, and then I suggested you and Peggy go to a cafe without your parents. You were distracted, and it was easy to take her away. It was a nightmare. I couldn't believe that it was all really happening. Several more employees in white coats came up to Jacob and started moving towards us. I couldn't think of a way to escape. But then, the front door swung open and cops ran into the building. They arrested all the employees, including Jacob. Our parents walked into the base after them. They immediately rushed towards Peggy. Daughter, are you okay? Did they do anything? Does anything hurt? Peggy freed herself from their embrace, came up to me and took my hand. Ellie is your daughter too. Weren't you worried about her? Our parents looked at each other embarrassed. The atmosphere turned very awkward. To smooth it over, I asked how the cops had found us. And then, Peggy surprised everyone once again. I hacked into the computer in that room and sent information from it to the police departments. To say that everyone was shocked would be to say nothing. However, Peggy looked completely unperturbed. Our math teacher suddenly walked into the hall. When our parents saw her, they froze up. My teacher explained to the police that she wasn't working there anymore, and even in the past, she hadn't been committing any crimes, just making calculations. Then she had quit and started to work at a school. But recently, she had found out that her former colleagues were planning on studying Peggy without her parents' permission. She knew that it was illegal and decided to intervene. She wanted to help Peggy no matter what. Ellie, I owe you an apology. What happened was neither your nor Peggy's fault. I've been mean to you. The police did not arrest her, and she left. I apologized to Peggy, too. I was ashamed of myself for constantly being annoyed with her. She forgave me. That's it. Since then, Peggy and I have been inseparable. We go on walks, and she helps me with my studies. At school, my math teacher no longer picks on me, and we've even become friends. My parents started treating me better. It just feels like they're doing it to please Peggy, and not because they want to. I'm still holding a grudge against them. Do you think I should forgive Mom and Dad? What is your relationship with your parents like? Write in the comments down below.